Hello, friends. Welcome back to Saturday Evenings Posted Mostly with me, your host, Trevor Stewart 1308, and we are here with the ASOC Prod Cat, the Peanut Gallery, and
Peanutty.
P to the Nutty. And that thing I sent ya, the Brock to my Phil Ken Sebin, Darth Dragonis.
Anybody get in here?
Right on.
Whatever he does very broccoli.
Barkley.
That's a very floral statement.
This is nothing that I didn't hear in high school.
Right?
I was expecting something like that more from middle school.
You have to remember,
understand where I went.
right? The middle school that we went to was not. They weren't the brightest spoon in the in the junk drawer.
I think you may have a cord problem with your headphones or something.
Yes. What do you?
Microphone.
Yeah.
Because you cut out mid sentence and you cut back in.
Huh. Hello.
At least on this end. What about you, Brock?
No, I don't have any wires, so I'm okay.
Okay.
Did it sound like you cut out mid sentence to you?
Yeah, but Trevor does that often, so I just learned to go with it.
Well.
I can't tell you how many times in the beginning.
Issue, not a biological issue. Or psychological. Whichever.
We speak on me now, so it could be anything. But
We're talking hardware, not software/wetware.
I am wetware. I am firmware and wetware. But only for lockpick. Only for lockpick.
I think I'm suddenly ill and
All right. So, oh yeah, some things I wanted to talk about before we got rolling. For one, of course, breakfast with the Kush gang. You know, I've got some cookies. I've got some Flintstones, Fruity Pebbles snack, which led us to the Flintstones conversation that we were having earlier. Where we were discussing what's available in the way of Flintstones vitamins. And also that there's an entire generation of kids out there who only know Flintstones from Cocoa Pebbles and Fruity Pebbles, from cereal boxes and vitamins.
And I still on the covers?
I think so. Maybe not, though. So the other part of this, though, is I've decided that I'm going to try and cut back the number of cigarettes I smoke. I've been really stressed out recently, and I found I'm smoking up to about a pack a day right now. And stress, the silent killer. So I want to cut back. And so while I was at the Kush gang, I picked up one of these old bar vapes to help me with, whenever I reach for a cigarette, I can reach for one of these instead. So I'm hoping to pick up more of these from, along the ways, these little disposable vapes to help me smoke less. I'm trying to get down to a quarter pack of cigarettes a day. I'm trying to get down to...
Your lungs, worse for the environment.
You're right. So, one of the interesting things about this, I got it from the Kush Gang, is it has the same aftertaste, the same terp aftertaste as a lot of their edibles and drinkables. And I realized what that flavor is. It's cedar. There's a hint of cedar in all of this. And I like it.
So they truly are treating you like a guinea pig.
I mean, oh, I was about to make a terrible joke, but I'm not going to do it.
Gallery is here for.
No, this would have been one that he had to text me.
Oh,
Person did through a paper towel roll.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's an old joke. And it's just not good. Okay, that doesn't have that cedar aftertaste. I'm getting a lot of static on the line all of a sudden. Is that from you guys?
I have no idea.
Nothing I hear.
It stopped when you guys talked. So, the breakfast with the Kush Gang, as with every other week that we have it, available at and obtained at Frosty Friday's private sales event at the Hidden Leaf, downtown Charlottesville, 105 West Main Street, on the downtown mall, above the brick, Suite 200. A great place to go with some great buds to get some great buds, eh, bud? And the only thing better than their bud is their customer service. They also have the lowest prices in town, according to my own personally highly biased research, by which I mean I was incredibly high when I did my biased research. Don't forget to check the website for times and events. The website is thehiddenleafcville.com. That's thehiddenleafcville.com. And a note of disclosure, we are an opinionated group of people here, and we will be discussing stuff around opinions, some pretty leftist opinions at that. And I just want to say that any of the opinions you hear expressed herein belong solely to the expressor of the opinion, or ourselves, the channel, and possibly even the entertainment label, but they do not belong to any of our advertisers, including The Hidden Leaf, The Kush Gang, and Firehouse. Yeah, that's the ad read. Also, the pre-rolls that I will be smoking throughout are provided by The Hidden Leaf. I've also got a whole bunch of stuff to try out on the DJ stream, on the DJ TS 1308 stream on Sunday evening from Firehouse. So that should be fun. So there we go with the ad read. Are there any bits of local news or headlines that we want to talk about before we get into today's video?
Let's see.
So
we
good.
actually have a new pope.
Oh yeah.
We have a new pope that has had words or has had public thoughts about J.D. Vance, and there are some that are really hoping that he'll decide to excommunicate him.
For killing the last pope.
Whatever reasons.
Reasons. Just reasons. Excommunicate him on virtue of being J.D. Vance.
Let's see, what else has been in the news this week?
It took a record low amount of time for them to choose a pope.
There's a lot of speculation that he was actually who the previous pope had handpicked, and everybody just kind of went with it.
Okay.
Especially considering he was one of his advisors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's been an uptick in Midwestern pope-related jokes this week.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the Googled questions that I came across was, can we call him the Pope?
The Pope.
Awful.
The Pope.
I hope that joke dies quickly.
It's not.
I personally,
It's going to be at least 6 months with that one.
I would
Yeah,
love
I do
to
not want
see.
to go that long with horrible Chicago accents.
Yeah.
Let's see. Newark Airport is having issues. The CEO is throwing a fit at United Airlines, and everybody else are pointing fingers right back where they belong and stating, well, we lost a whole bunch of our traffic controllers.
They also lost signal. Didn't they?
Uh-huh.
They were the ones that
They
lost.
lost all power for 90 seconds.
Right.
It wasn't just the signal, it was everything.
Okay, all power. They lost all power for
Wrong
90
signature.
seconds.
They
Can you...
Hegseth needs to lose signal.
Waiting till I'm taking a sip to say that. Almost got a spit take, y'all.
Hey, I gotta get my words in edgewise. If you're already talking, I'm not going to be saying it.
So that's gone up in a interesting cluster.
There's been
also mentioning that there are some serious infrastructure things with the Newark Airport that need to be addressed, because they have apparently lost a runway that needs to be severely repaired because of maintenance issues that were not addressed.
Okay.
And then the whole
That's terrifying.
We're working with outdated equipment to the point of
Right. They're working with very old equipment. Early aughts, I think. I don't think they've updated equipment since pre-iPhone.
DOS.
Yeah, since DOS.
Yeah,
Wow.
but it's New Jersey. That's brand new to them.
Yeah. Let's see. We had the May of the
That made me laugh.
May of the 4th be with you
And
presidential toast, which
Sorry. So, if the orange idiot believes that the MS-13 that is photoshopped is real, does that mean that he also believes that he's a Jedi that has muscles and a cowboy that's been to the moon and
He had a
stuff?
red lightsaber.
Yeah.
Well, all Jediers. That's not the point. Well, actually, they did post it as he was the good guy, but then he had an orange lightsaber, which is pretty much the most evilest you can get.
Orange lightsaber. It took
But
a
yeah,
second.
does he believe that those are correct? Like, does he think that those are actually him?
Oh, the
I
way he
think
talks,
he's
I
been
doubt it.
listening to my statements about Vadarian leftism.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either, because none of us are arrested yet. But yeah,
They're
this.
trying to take me down.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. How are they trying to take you down?
Well, they've reduced my Social Security.
Oh
They've
yeah,
taken away the Medicaid. They've
right.
taken away TANF. So basically, they're trying to.
They put Dr. Oz in charge of Medicaid, who
And
believe that they're not getting enough money. They're not getting enough value for their money spent because 70% of people on Medicaid are dealing with chronic illnesses, and they really shouldn't be doing that. People should be doing their duty and just being healthier.
I was about to say, doesn't he have some history of some ableist beliefs?
He can take his
Yeah, he's also
looking face and go plant it elsewhere.
sold miracle drugs multiple times. So
Right.
Yeah.
We know he's a quack. We know he's a quack at this point. I'm more worried about his questionable ableist beliefs, his questionable gender-related beliefs, than anything else. Like I'm worried because of. Hey, good to see you, Kush Gang, Kingsways, Kush Gang Ways. Already went through the bottle of drip. Working on the Kush juice. Already did a packet of cookies, and I'm working on the Fruity Pebbles, which is delicious, by the way.
The other thing would also be in Newark is that ICE arrested the Newark mayor.
Yes, I heard about that. I didn't hear much about it, but give us some background on that.
I know. Was it some Congress people went somewhere. I don't know the exact location. There were good Congress people that were standing up and being like, no, you can't treat our people this way. And I guess there was some sort of invitation to come speak. And they gave out 2 different addresses with, the Congress people and the mayor sent to one location and general people sent to another. And when the congressmen or Congress people and the mayor arrived, the Congress people went in and talked, and they waited to hear more about what was happening with their colleagues. And when they came out, because they were done waiting, a group of roughly 20 armed and masked, because they were wearing full face masks, so you couldn't see who they were. ICE people descended on the mayor.
5 years ago, you couldn't get any of these people to wear a mask to save your life.
No.
Right? Literally to save your life.
let's see, 20 of them.
Okay,
I'd be willing to bet I can get 16 of them before they get me.
We're not doing this 100 men versus a gorilla joke.
No.
Because we all know where this ends. Oh, wait. No, you guys haven't heard this bit.
Am I the leader of the 100 men? Because I'll instruct the other 99 to go to Walmart and get a handgun and a rifle.
Right?
Then that gorilla won't get anywhere close to us. So
Right? No, of course, the 100 men against a gorilla has descended into some toxic male bullcrap about 100 straight men versus 100 gay men. And when I saw that, my reaction was, that's incredibly boring. That sounds
Well,
awfully dull because I'm not into straight guys. Why can't we just do
100
like
straight guys.
100 gay guys versus me? I can deal with that.
Okay, so 100 straight guys. 60 of them are probably going to be like super homophobic and then run away.
You're
So really,
determined
it's
to
100 gay
step on
dudes
my
versus 40.
punchline, aren't you?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's kind of hard. Punchline's not that big.
Ouch!
Rude.
Ouch! You have no idea how big my punchline is, thank you.
No, I don't, but the joke was there.
And it's only not very big, not because it's hard, but because it was soft. I'm a grower, not a shower. If the punchline had been hard, it would have been much bigger. Just that talk pick.
Anyway, I sent you a fairly recent article about this mayor thing. Magistrate, and supposedly the reason that I sent it to I sent it to you, not put it in chat. It wouldn't translate to chat for me. But the mayor has been released, and there is
Raz Baraka.
there's some current argument going on back and forth over whether the place they were at is something that ICE can be operating, with the mayor and the Congress people saying that they don't have the permits or anything else to be operating a facility to house, quote unquote,
House?
as many people as they have there or could have there.
Well, the fun thing is, they read the initial excuse for the supposed arrest was trespassing. When they were invited under appointment to be there. Can you trespass in a place that you are invited to be?
Consent is not eternal.
Yes, but they showed up at the date and time of the invitation.
No, I know. I know what you mean, and you're right. But there is when taken to extremes, there is something that needs to be recognized there about, consent. In other ways, consent is not eternal in other circumstances. Now, what we're looking at here specifically is a case of extrajudicial illegal detainment, illegal arrest, and a flimsy excuse at best. But what we're also looking at here, what this is saying to me, and the thing that I've been kind of like, okay, yeah, he's being authoritarian, yeah, he's being dangerous, but he doesn't have a ready-made army at his disposal to come get us, every time, all the time. he doesn't have the ground troops to really install fascism. But what we're seeing is that he's using ICE as his ground troops. ICE are his stormtroopers. He's bypassing the police and the military and using ICE.
I would add a supposedly to that statement, because you can't verify that all whatever number of members of ICE, the air quotes, are actually there on official business, since most of them show up in plain clothes, wearing a mask.
That's what makes me think that they're doing his bidding. That's what makes me think that they're there as his ground troops.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know they're doing his bidding. I know they're there as his ground troops, but that's the fact that they're hiding their identities, the fact that they're is what makes me think that he's using them as his stormtroopers, as his ground troops, as his personal enforcement arm.
Hey, I can tell you what day they were all hired.
What day?
January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a joke or is that for real?
It is meant as biting commentary, so technically a joke.
Okay. But I do believe a lot of them would have gotten hired on January 6th. Yes.
Yeah.
Revenge of the 6th. Ooh, that was a delicious breakfast. I don't recommend all you kids at home go doing that. That was not a balanced breakfast. But it sure was delicious.
Oh, in lighter news, did you hear about the metal quake in Blacksburg?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Because, of course, it was Metallica. Now, also,
It's definitely going to go straight to their head.
You know, yeah. Makes me wonder if the 3.0 out of Farmville was an aftershock of the Metallica quake.
No, because it happened earlier in the week before that.
Oh, great. Oh, great. We have an earthquake, and then all of the Metallica fans decide to stomp hard enough to give us another earthquake. Great. Brilliant, guys. Oh, that was... I apologize. I know I try not to be sarcastic, but that was very sarcastic.
You mean the thing that's lost on me?
No. Really?
Yeah, I think.
Mister, I don't speak sarcasm.
Oh.
Oh, no. Because sarcasm is absolutely the best way to communicate.
No, but it's a great way of making a point.
True.
Which is the whole point of communication.
Sarcasm.
Jazz hands.
No.
So, yeah. I think that gets us through the...
I know, that's why I said.
I think that gets us through the current events and local news.
No, well, the last one The last bit was which many people watched, and there were some favorite horses based
Okay,
on the
hold
name
on a
alone.
second. I missed the important part of that.
Oh, the hilarity is in which horse won versus which horse people wanted to win because of the names, not because the horse actually could run, just for the
See,
name.
okay, again, missed the important bit. What are you talking about?
Kentucky
You
Derby.
Kentucky Derby. All right. You cut out there at the beginning part of that. I think you
You,
guys are
buddy.
having internet trouble.
I heard her.
You heard her?
Yep, putting 1 and 2 together. I
That
understand
means
where we are.
I'm having internet trouble.
So
Either that or I'm having Discord trouble.
so last weekend was the Kentucky Derby.
Okay.
Among the different horses in the race, you had one named Journalism.
Oh, yeah.
You had one named Sovereignty.
And of course, journalism didn't win.
No, Journalism is one that they wanted to win. Sovereignty is the one that did win.
Journalism loses again.
Yes.
Yeah. At least journalism didn't fall and break a leg
This is true.
and have to be taken out behind the shed and shot.
True.
Because that's about where journalism is at this point.
Mm-hmm. Journalism came in second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds about right. At least the winner
American-
wasn't named Entertainment.
American Promise came in 16th.
Yeah, that sounds about right too.
Followed at 17 by Render Judgment. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had some very interestingly named horses, and the number of people that I heard various sites as I was popping through that we want so and so to win. We want so and so to win. It's like yeah, and then they get the results and they're like,
Yeah.
this is not fun.
What do you mean it's not fun? It's hilarious.
Oh no,
It's way too
hilarity
true. Is what the problem is. It's just way too
Yeah.
true. Just it hurts inside a little that truth can live out can display itself in something like this.
Very, very much like that horrible Onion article you had me watching earlier.
Oh, yeah. It's sad when you... Being able to execute a certain level of critical thinking and are still not entirely certain if an Onion article is true or not.
Because boy, could you see that actually being a thing.
Yeah, well, it's not our fault. It really isn't. They've been making it harder and harder to tell truth from fiction on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They're making it. They're trying to desensitize us to the bizarre and unprecedented, so that they can continue to get away with atrocities that are unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know, in that, gosh, in that interview I did with the folks with the what was it, the Socialist Democrats,
Yeah.
with that guy from the Socialist Democrats, and we were talking, and he was like, I probably shouldn't have been, but I was shocked by this. And I said, actually, it's a good thing for us to remain shocked, because if we don't, we're getting desensitized to it. We're normalizing it. And I feel like, you know, while we see these things coming, we know they're happening. We need to continue to muster up the energy to be shocked by these things that are absolutely obvious. You know? And I know that's not easy. Especially for those of us in the room right now, because we are, I think everyone here is of an above intelligence and is capable of using deductive reasoning and empirical thinking and coming up with these understandings that, of course, this is what's gonna happen. This is the direction we're going on purpose, because this is what these people want, you know. But I I do think it's good that we try to remain at least a little surprised at how hard our system is failing us. You know, everybody in the room is, and by everybody in the room, I mean everybody in the VC right now is smart enough to know that, you know, while all of these things are alleged, they're happening. That the people in power really are working really hard to push us to an authoritarian police state where they're in charge. They're working really hard to keep the parts of the status quo that give them power alive. They're really working really hard to continue taking our money and our extracting our work, our effort for their benefit until we die. It, but I think we need to still be able to remain shocked that it is happening the way it is, because again, if we don't, we've become desensitized and it's becoming normalized. And this is some of what shifts our Overton window to the right. Does that make sense, y'all?
I think I understand what you're saying.
Okay. I feel like that was a heck of a rant there to to make a point that I think I tried to. I think I repeated myself like 3 or 4 times making that point. Well, now to the subject of the day, the subject on hand, the video that we're gonna watch, which is the privatization of everything. Let me do this. There we go. How America Sold Itself Out by Deja Sade.
Oh, so you corporate
Can you
types
all
think you're
hear it?
rock stars?
That's as ridiculous as us
No.
being corporate.
I could send my kid to
But
private.
I'm not on the Discord. I'm on the Twitch.
Oh, okay. Can you guys hear it? Peanut Gallery and
Yes.
and Cat? Okay.
For the time being, yes.
Well, while it was playing, yes. Now, no, because it's not
Yes.
playing. All right. Now this is a long one, so we'll take it in bits. This is gonna be a
We do everything in bit.
Yeah, we do.
At school if we wanted to, so who cares if they're public schools? So we should privatize schools to eliminate the conception that we should care if some other kid goes to school, which everybody has. So you got to drive it out of their heads.
I want a dynamic country where the private enterprise carries the day, not the government.
People will find out where the money came from.
You need to grow up. This is America. People don't care where your fortune came from. And in 2 election cycles, it'll be just some myth, some gossip.
Breathe in. Now exhale. Congratulations, you've just experienced one of the last free things left in America for now. Hey! Once upon a time, things were just public. And what do I mean when I say public? Well, by public, my friend, I mean open to everyone. Think things that are meant for you and every other citizen. Things like public schools, libraries, roads, clean air, infrastructure, transit, national parks. These are usually funded by you and maintained by the government. But over the last few decades, you have definitely felt a change. Maybe you've called it inflation or the rising cost of living. And of course, those things, yes. But let's be clear. Things are expensive because everything, and I mean everything, is being sold to you. And, since life in America has become a product, you're just gonna have to pay to play. It's not that things have just gotten more expensive since your parents raised you. It's that you now have to pay for more things while having fewer public goods and communal resources than they did. And if you can't afford it, well, that's just too bad.
You keep digging!
Your right to exist in this country has become just another revenue stream for the ultra-rich. But of course, as tragic optimists, we're not here to just complain. We will instead name the beast: privatization, going private, private equity, etc. Show you how it operates and wake you up to why everything has gotten more expensive. Help you spot privatization efforts in your own city and actually see what it might look like to wage resistance against this. Americans have been convinced that everything requires efficiency, convenience, and capitalizing, including just existing, just being here. Somebody needs to make money off of you. And like the good little consumers that we are, we believe it rather than exercising our rights as citizens. I've just reread this book, The Privatization of Everything, and now y'all get to overthink with me while I share with you why we need to change the way that we talk about public goods. Not for aesthetic reasons, but for actual survival. So grab some tea. We're gonna rock with some black tea. It's called Paris. Get cozy. If you got laundry to fold or some chores to do, grab your stuff, anything that you need to saddle up and lock in. And then throughout this, I want you to keep in mind this question: is America truly first, or is profit first? Part 1. What is a public good? What does it even mean when we say private or public? Here's a quick refresher for my visual peeps. Public goods are basic rights. Exist to serve society, funded by tax dollars, everyone has access. Privatized services exist to serve profit, you pay to access, again, limited to who can afford it. If you have a pulse in America, chances are you have definitely heard the dog whistles and marketing phrases that signal and sell you on making as many things as possible private instead of...
So we know we oh, good. Kingsways can hear. We know the broad strokes of public versus private, right? We understand that.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Partially for, content reasons, I feel like we need to stop and talk about it, but also for, I feel like I feel like it's again, everyone in this room is really smart.
And me.
Yes, and you, and Kush Gang. You know, everybody here is really smart, and Just Me, Crystal, and Dassin. What are some things that you've seen go private that you didn't expect to go private?
Oh, that's a good question.
I have one specifically in mind. There's something that walks the line of this public v private thing perfectly.
Okay.
But I'm interested to hear from y'all first.
Oh.
So, as a salesman from a very early age, I figured out how to monetize almost everything. So, I might be the wrong person to ask this question.
Fair enough. I know. Okay.
I would say that one thing that we are starting to see would be effectively the privatization of public utilities, like internet.
I would say that internet was never public. I would say
No,
that,
well, all right. It was never public, but it also wasn't something where one person could say, I don't like you, and turn off a whole country's internet, which is what it's becoming. And it's not even the country that he's supposedly adopted into.
fair enough. I was gonna say I feel like internet's become more publicly available and less
It is
privatized.
publicly available, but
Less privatized because there are so many places that offer free Wi-Fi.
true, they are offering it, but the main carrier of that Wi-Fi more and more is becoming just a single person that can just say, I don't like what your country's doing. You now have no internet.
Free.
Right.
That's a wonderful lie.
I'm thinking specifically the quote unquote free internet that was sent to Ukraine that all of a sudden went away.
Aha. I see where you're coming at it from. Okay, yes.
So, not
Yes.
nobody that gave that free internet or owns
I
that company lives there, but all of a
but
sudden,
because it's not politically advantageous for President Trilon, Ukraine loses internet access. And I see what you mean there. I see what you mean there. Uh, and I
Sorry.
agree.
hold
I
on.
agree.
Voice call from Westgate Apartments.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right. So
That's good for you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
okay. Not sure what that was, but okay. What I was thinking of is the a lot of the natural areas, a lot of the parks, the recreational park areas around me are
putting on shorts like that.
Everything okay over there?
Yeah, actually, good news.
Okay.
It just sounds like somebody's got the TV on in the background.
It's yeah.
Package was possibly porch pirated, but the
but the okay.
so
The internet
apparently
got
the connection
pirated
issue
too.
is between us and Trevor.
What?
I'm
See, all
assuming
I heard was between us and Trevor.
Right.
We heard the porch pirate possibly, and then between us
package
and
was
Trevor.
possibly porch pirated, and we received a phone call from the management company saying that it has been found. So she is going to the office, just about 100 yards away, to go pick it up.
Aha. Okay. All right. Well, okay, so what I was saying is the thing that I've seen that sort of gets to me is the um the park and sort of park areas around me are all fee use areas where you either have to have a hunting license or a fishing license or have to purchase a day pass or something of that type to access to be on that land.
Yeah, but you know what that's from.
Republican governor who wanted to make money.
That's from people who would go to these spots and fish and leave their trash everywhere. So you'd have to hire somebody to go clean it all up. That's where the fishing and game licenses came from.
Ah.
And there's also the fact that public spaces, specifically nature spaces, are not high on very many tax expenditure priority lists. So, in order to maintain these places in any condition that is suitable, they need to offset their costs somehow since the tax dollar is not coming towards them.
All right. So let's remember these arguments as we go forward in this, and see if we
Now,
feel like they hold up as we get further in.
now, I say that argument that I say, remember, I'm saying other people are putting these things low on the priority list.
Right. No, you're both saying this isn't how you feel. This is what you see as the reason why. I get that. I get that.
And most of the time, it's because this tax dollar is being so brilliantly distributed towards some private company's pocket when, I don't know, in the mid 90s, a lot of road repair became privatized as dot.
Well, again, let's watch on and see what happens. But I do believe so. Midnight Daydream says So this is actually my industry. We are also finding that local parks are reaching out to private companies to care for their spaces rather than being cared for by the park employees anymore. Okay. See, and as we watch on, we'll see how dangerous that is.
Of course, 90% of the park service was just fired too.
Right. Right. Efficiency cuts. All right, let's see what huh?
It's tangentially Sears owned their own shipping group.
Sears owned their own shipping group. Tangentially,
Yeah.
blank, 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 blank. Sears owned their own shipping group.
Tangentially to my retail experience, Sears owned their own shipping group. They had their own in-house human resources, their own in-house financial group, also known as H&R Block nowadays. But they did everything in-house. Nowadays, you have time cards are managed by a separate company. Shipping is managed by a separate company. People actually shipping is a separate company even under that. People who manage the financial records for the company is a separate company, possibly 3 separate companies.
Yes, I don't believe that's quite what we're talking about. That would be lateral disintegration. I think.
Okay, we cut out and cut back in again.
Right.
That goes to one of the points she said earlier about how we're paying for more things to get the same thing.
Right.
We have to pay for the additional cost of the separate entities doing the financial, the shipping, the management, and all the other things on top of the actual cost of the product.
Right.
So those things have been outside of government, outsourced, as opposed to privatized. Which I'm using those two terms interchangeably for this argument, for this statement.
For this statement. Right, okay. I see that. And we're paying for the outsourcing instead of the privatization in that case.
And privatization is just government outsourcing.
Yes. Very, very incisive. I like that way of looking at it. I agree with that. Government outsourcing its responsibilities. All right.
Public. My fellow Americans, blah, 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 blah. School choice gives parents more options. We're defunding public education, and we're funneling your tax dollars into private schools that get to make their own rules and exclude whoever they want. IEPs need not apply. Blah, 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 blah. The free market is more efficient. Corporations profit while services decline under the guise of efficiency. No public accountability means that we can and will maximize and prioritize profits at all costs. Blah. Blah, 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 blah. Government overspending is out of control. We're going to deliberately break things. In fact, we're going to break public services so much that they barely even function. Now we can claim they don't work to justify privatization.
Wasteful spending, outrageous government waste.
Wasteful spending.
To one of the most wasteful agencies in government.
Waste, fraud, and abuse rampant in our federal government.
Wix. One platform. Any website. Unlimited creation. Describe your needs and goals. And AI.
We like to use the
Outsource
words
it.
waste and abuse because they sort of sound good.
Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to Privatization 101. Today, we're going to be teaching you how to turn boring, inefficient public goods into thriving, profit-driven markets. Step 1, we need to manufacture a crisis. You will convince the public that government-run services are slow, broken, and inefficient. Schools, healthcare, post offices, it doesn't matter, you name it. All you have to do is highlight a few bad examples, and then you just call the whole system broken. Step 2.
What are some examples of that from our lifetimes? My examples are DMV and the post office. Hello?
I got nothing.
The post office is a weird one. It doesn't quite fit because while it's not technically a government agency.
No, but let's not.
It's just like Amtrak is a service of the government, but it is not a government agency.
Let's not stand on technicalities here. Let's address the nature of the beast. Amtrak would count, I think. And I think Amtrak does count. Even, especially because we've been convinced that it is inefficient.
No, what we have been convinced of recently is not inefficiency, it's danger.
Well, okay, dangerous, not inefficient.
They've
but we
done their
have
best to show danger on railways and show how using the rail system, you have so many things versus, privatized trucking companies. Meanwhile, all the environmental people are being like, yeah, you can't get a railway into the center of Pottsville or Lovingston. You need stuff to get there.
It's that
exponentially larger amount of cargo the same distance before you have to put it on a truck to get to all of the off points from the rail line.
Last mile is different from the rest of the shipping industry. And that's by not highlighting that, I think, by not highlighting how different last mile is and almost completely separate from the rest of shipping, I think that we have been sold a manufactured crisis, a bit of a manufactured crisis, by the way that they highlight the danger of railways. It doesn't matter because last mile anyway. It doesn't matter because you can't get a rail line into the middle of a. It doesn't, So it is this sort of arguing for the status quo of shipping to be maintained because of danger and because the last mile is the one that presents and last mile is a technical term in the shipping industry meaning the last leg of delivery from to the leg of delivery that ends specifically at the porch or the mailbox or the whatever at the consumer.
You take that and you can extend it a little further because now, the status quo was we want to keep the truckers because this does this thing. Okay, fine. But now they're going with, it's really dangerous to have people driving these big trucks on the road. Look at how many of them are having medical emergencies or falling asleep or reacting inappropriately to
Chris in the
road rage
386. Much love. Thanks for the raid in. Welcome, Raiders. We are talking right now. We are talking about the privatization of everything. But right now, we are working our way through how we've been sold a manufactured crisis in delivery through being told that trains are dangerous, while I'm still trying to get to my point about the manufactured crises that I was sold as a child or of public goods that I was sold as a child, or public services, was DMV and the post office. I feel the need to make that, to put a tag on that point. And for anybody who doesn't know who we are, I am Trevor Stewart, 1308. We are here with the Peanut Gallery, the associate producer, or ASOC Prod Cat, and the best month of my calendar, Brocktober.
Incorrect. I am no longer here.
Who is no longer here. So
pay no attention to that voice behind the curtain.
Right.
To the ageless and handsome voice from behind the curtain.
Yes.
You do have a nice voice.
It is
Yeah,
ageless.
you should hear me when I turn it on. This is my regular voice. I have a radio voice that just melts panties.
Can we get a bit of the radio voice?
No, you're not paying me for that.
Dang. How much did it take? If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Yeah, pretty much. You're going to have to take care of all of my medical bills for the rest of my life. Hey, there you go.
Talk about a public service. Very cute. So, but yeah, we were talking about shipping and truckers, and I was afraid that because Kat was saying that it may be cheaper and more environmentally friendly to use rail lines for long distance goods distribution, that she might be trying to argue my future ex-husband out of a job.
See, I'm not the one trying to argue that. What they're pushing for now is autonomous trucks. See, they want to keep the trucks, but they want to cut the people out of them, because now it's not an environmental thing, it's a danger thing, that
It's
people are falling asleep and people are having medical emergencies and people are reacting like people to things that are happening on the road. So they want autonomous trucks that can just drive point A to point B. Totally leaving out
now
that whole little bit that if they have a robot truck that can drive from point A to point B without a person, it can make the drive in X amount of time versus a human who is required to have rest stops and potty breaks.
There is that. There is that. Automation is going to take a lot of jobs. Like, that's just the way it's going to go. But we're going to be sold these bills of goods that are in some cases true, in some cases not, but they're going to be sold to us no matter what. One thing I do want to say is I'm not as worried for Lockpick's job, because he's not a truck driver in the US. He's a truck driver in Canada, so my future ex-husband's job should be safe.
Yeah.
For some reason, they seem...
How they are, but it was more an illustration of how they've been using the danger aspect to push things in a specific direction.
Right.
Even though they were presented environmental or...
You're going to have to repeat that. You cut out.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think the government doesn't want her speaking about stuff.
It's not me. I'm not playing with the Discord.
All right, you're going to have to try and repeat all of that, because...
Discord does look pretty weird right now.
I think they are trying to repeat that. I think they are having internet troubles.
I'd just fuck with you right now and be like, what would you say, Trevor? What was that?
Right.
I don't hear like the first couple words. Yeah, no. You're coming
Thank you
in
for
fine.
not. Thank you for not. The pause there was me trying to come up with another nickname for you to ask if you could hear me. Thank you for not messing with me. I appreciate it. So it really is their interwebs, not mine.
I'm thinking so, unless Discord's messing up as well. Could be a combination of the two.
If Discord
it keeps giving us a disconnect and reconnect sound at this end. So
oh yeah, it's your interwebs.
Though nothing I'm measuring is showing any spikes or lags in the internet connection.
Yeah.
So maybe it's 100% Discord.
Maybe it is 100% Discord server.
Do y'all want to just try resetting?
Turn it off and turn it back on?
Otherwise known as resetting.
Over to me. Give me a minute.
Switching over to the alternate setup.
Fair enough. Wouldn't be a stream without technical issues.
Absolutely not.
Oh, that was cool. There was echo.
Glad it wasn't just me.
Oh no,
I could hear
not,
the echo too.
No.
That was feedback because both systems were active at the same time.
That was such a cool sound.
Yes, it was.
I might have to try and pull that sound from and put it in something. Psh.
Be my guest.
That would require
Yes, put our Discord to the test.
That would also require me doing extra editing, which we know I don't like to do.
And the French version of the...
Okay, now you're doing it. Am I picking up? I'm pretty sure I'm still at least recorded. Oh, tell me.
I can hear you. I can't hear Brock.
Can't hear Brock.
Nope.
Yeah, you cut out there for a moment.
Yeah. You said in the French version and it cut out right there.
All right. I guess it's my turn. I'll be right back.
Here we go around the Discord loop, the Discord loop, the Discord loop. Here we go round the Discord loop so early in the stream.
Well, Discord is just trying to live up to its name.
Oh, absolutely.
Have a great joke and nobody laughed. I should have known something.
Well, you'll have to say it again so we can hear you.
Okay, in the French version of Beauty and the Beast, does Lumiere speak with an American accent? Damn it. Oh, okay.
Okay, it no longer sounds like you're speaking through a blanket.
No.
Try that again.
Well, I took the blanket away.
Round 3, speak!
Okay. In the French version of Beauty and the Beast, does Lumiere speak with an American accent? Nope.
That's what I thought you said.
You know, I could think of one worse.
Oh, no.
Not an American accent. Quebecois.
Ooh. Ooh, that got a reaction from all of us. I was going to say Australian just to, mess with them, but...
I think that one sealed it there.
Yeah. All right. Back
so
to
what
the
was your particular
privatization
point about the post office?
The post office and the DMV and how we're being all of my life, I've been told that the post office can't deliver. It's its mail arrives late. Things get lost. You can't rely on the post office. It's such tedious and drudgerous work that people go crazy and come in and shoot up the place. That people who work there are impolite and unpleasant.
I remember that from the 80s, but not ever since.
Well,
I mean, in the 90s, I remember Mom mailing stuff from here to Florida, and it taking 3 weeks to get there, and then Dad would mail something from Florida, and it would get here in 2 days.
okay. Also, look at the rise of privatized logistics solutions industries. And logistics is code, industry code for delivery. They call it logistics so they don't have to be delivery drivers. But, UPS, DHL, FedEx, all of these things, they even put out drop boxes like mailboxes so you could just so you had an alternative, at which point mail became for letters and only letters. And then we were sold these privatized email groups, servers.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through them now for our correspondence. And the post office has essentially been gutted. Now, I don't know that the post office was ever that tragically horrible. I do remember it being frustrating at times. And with Amazon and Amazon even branching out into logistics, and now we have next day delivery options, and the reliability has gone way up. So I don't know if it falls into the manufactured crisis category, but it certainly is a case of the privatized system
Now,
winning
there's one
out
part
over the
on the
public.
back end.
Okay.
There's one part on the back end of that a lot of people don't seem to be aware of.
What's
You
that?
realize that most of these packages, anything 10 pounds and under, is delivered from UPS, FedEx, DHL, whatever, to the post office, shipped via the post office, then delivered back to UPS, FedEx, DHL, whatever, and then they become the last mile driver.
And there you go. And now some postal workers, some, I think a decent number, are picking up last mile delivery jobs from Amazon, DHL, FedEx, UPS.
Now, the one part where it's different, it is inverse for large packages.
Yes.
Large packages get delivered to the post office, who usually then send that off via one of the large freight shippers, and then it gets delivered to the endpoint post office, and it is the person's responsibility to come to the post.
To come to the post office and pick it up. You cut out there at the end again.
That's where I stopped.
Okay. So
He stopped and I started chirping like a bird.
it's like herding kittens, y'all.
Use the laser pointer and treats. It's not hard to herd cats. I promise you.
Could be my problem is I haven't eaten yet.
I'm not saying y'all make me want a cigarette, but
I've just been handed a wedge of cheese to be quiet and leave you alone.
so now again, a lot of what I'm doing is just pointing out this step one of this process that we've come into contact with, or that I've come into contact with in my lifetime. And the same sorts of myths have been told to me about the DMV. Now, I'm not saying that those myths were wrong, but, you know, most of my life, the DMV was framed as living hell on earth. The worst place to be or have to spend your time outside of jail. Sometimes even possibly preferable, not preferable to jail, but even sometimes the idea of jail was sold as preferable to having to spend time in the DMV. You know, these are the...
Yeah, but was that all for comedic value?
Well, some, yes. But the comedic value... It was a commiseration comedic value in those cases, not a subverted expectation. And I'm gonna say, you know, the DMV, not great. Even now, still not the most fun thing to do with an afternoon.
Fair, but since I was 15 and a half, the DMV's gotten better.
much better, much better. Although, and it hasn't been privatized, I don't think. Leastways not the Virginia DMV. So again, it's only this sort of step one where I'm kind of trying to point out the kind of mythologies that we've been sold as, you know, this public good is awful. You know,
let's privatize it.
Well, I'm not trying to jump on yet. I'm just saying, because when we do, she is much better at conveying her message than I am.
So I'm trying to think of the manufactured crisis that caused the privatization of EMTs.
Oh, I know that one.
Okay. Now, emergency medical technicians, right? We're going for emergency services?
Yes.
Okay.
What was the manufactured crisis for the privatization of?
The first step was in making it seem like there were no volunteer operations left. And they started off by doing that by hiring city-run operations, because there's no volunteer services, or the volunteer services that were there were inadequate and couldn't handle the load. So they started by adding in paid EMTs that were paid by the city or the town or whatever. And then it became a case of, the town can't afford this anymore, we're going to license this out. And now you end up with companies like LifeCare.
Life scare?
Through that kind of stuff.
Death
Exactly.
care?
Yes. But they started by making a case of, there are either no volunteers, or the volunteers are poorly trained, or the volunteers were just, you know, could not handle the load.
Great example. Great
And
example.
they did that with Nelson.
Let's keep this in mind as we go through this. As we go further through this. Is such a good example that I think it's a nice textbook case. And yes, I think you're completely right on that, Kat. Now, I do want to point out
I've seen that one happen in real time with Nelson County. Sorry.
It's okay. You saw that happen in Nelson County.
Yes.
Yes.
Nelson had multiple volunteer fire departments. They had multiple volunteer rescue squad organizations. At one point, membership had dropped. There was a turnover. They had reached one of those low points where the older people that had been doing it for years were aging out and they couldn't do the stuff anymore, and they were getting younger volunteers in. And someone on the county commission thought it was a great idea to start paying EMTs. And they started first off by hiring EMT crews to run at night, quote unquote, to cover the nighttime calls, because everybody that's volunteer works or whatever, and so they're sleeping. And then they started charging people for the ambulance run, regardless of which crew took the call. So they started with charging, doesn't matter who picked you up. Whereas originally, for the volunteer companies, if they picked you up, there was no ambulance charge to get you to the hospital.
Right.
So they started with adding people for that. Older people that saw where this was going and didn't like it left the volunteer crew because they were not okay with their time, their effort, their donated services being charged for.
Right.
And then the volunteer crews and the paid crews got switched around to where the paid crews were running all of the daytime calls and the volunteers were running all of the nighttime calls.
Right.
So it was little by little, and you had volunteers signing up. Yeah. You had volunteers signing up.
Thinking... Oh, I'm
they
sorry.
They were doing something.
Right.
So you had people that signed up originally that thought they were doing something good for the community, being told that they weren't, and then being given basically the worst shift possible because they were running the 10 to 6 shift, basically, because the regular ones didn't come on until 6 in the morning.
Right.
And they were still running out of the volunteer squad, so they still had to raise all of their own money for upkeep and stuff on the maintenance. And the paid EMTs were coming in and using all that stuff too, and they didn't have to worry about any of the upkeep. And as far as they've got lack of training, they've got this, they've got that. There are a whole bunch of volunteer people that went and just decided, well, I might as well get paid to do this.
Right. If I'm, if I'm running alongside people who are getting paid, and I'm giving up my valuable time, I might as well get paid.
So they gained a whole crew of people that were already trained.
Right.
And in some instances were actually far better trained or were cross-trained, whereas the paid people weren't. Because you had crews that had been running side by side with fire for ages.
Okay, so now, and step 3, profit.
Yep.
Just to reiterate, this is the basic model that Deja Sade is about to outline. That is, you stated the manufactured crisis very well and showed how it led to step 2 to starve the public and to step 3 to profit. I do want to there. Oh gosh. Okay. Yes.
Just one note. Because of this, and because it is known that there are other volunteer organizations outside of the county that
you're gonna have to repeat all of this.
Crossing county lines.
Everything before crossing county lines, you're gonna have to repeat it.
Really?
Yup.
Never mind. I say later. I type out. You talk, I type.
After I say my thing, we're moving on from the subject.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's fine. I type anyway.
Shucks. Okay, so I think the most hilarious example of this, of something like this, specifically, is in Ithaca, New York, where not only do they have privatized, I don't think they have public EMT services. I think it's all privatized. But it's not just that the EMT service is privatized. It's that it's the same company, the same family that owns the funeral home that's right next door to the the dispatch for the ambulances. Bangs, EMT, and funeral home.
Oh.
That's just so Ithaca. That is some Ithaca stuff right there. Kat says the paid factor for ambulance rides has led to an increase in patients either crossing county lines so the free service can take them or not going at all. Yes, that is exactly what happens with that. But that was not necessarily the intended. Maybe it was, but it's not necessarily. Well, okay, now, I argue.
Profit.
I argue that profit may not be the only motivator. Racism and classism are hard motivators.
This is true.
It may be an effort to drive out those seen as not worthy of being there, as well as making profit. Let's not forget that evil can do more than one thing at once. Intersectionality. Evil is as intersectional as we are. It's not like proton beams where you can't cross the streams. They want the Yankees to leave first.
Yes.
All right, so let us get back to this. Bearing in mind the example of emergency medical services. This was not a problem with the internet. This was a problem with my internal processor.
We're going to starve the public. We're going to starve the public system of funding. We're going to defund schools. We're going to cut social programs. We're going to let infrastructure crumble. That part's important. Once everything is running on fumes, people will be begging for private investment. And finally, step 3, profit. We're going to sell off that broken system to private corporations. We'll slap a nice market solution label on it, and boom, you've turned basic human needs into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Congratulations, you've just learned the secret to modern governance. Why fix something when you can sell it? Step 1, we starve the public, create problems. Step 2, sell the solution. Step 3, collect attendees. Step 4, repeat. We just witnessed a classic bait and shift. Privatization is when public services or assets that were originally owned, operated, and funded by the government through tax dollars are transferred to private companies or corporations to run for profit. What's the prize? And if the prize is your tax dollars, you have a right to know exactly how that money's being used and who benefits.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
If I've done this right, we're about 5 to 7 minutes into this video, and if you are still here, there are 2 things that I would like to say to you. First, thank you for being here. And 2, you are who we need. I understand the appeal of quick dopamine hit, short-form viral media, but the fight that needs to be put up will not be waged by the members of our society who cannot maintain sustained attention. It will not be waged by the members of our society who do not have it within them to do the tedious, necessary work that is required to be a citizen. You are who we need. Someone with a bias for action and a sustained attention span. When President Trelon tosses around the scrap ideas of throwing out imaginary $5,000 checks to people as a result of their waste findings, and instead of being incensed, people are frothing at the mouth, overlooking all of the corruption that is actively happening in front of us, know that the billionaire class has fully broken us down and turned us into consumers. And not only has that happened, but they know it. A consumer would be glad for hush money they weren't expecting. A consumer doesn't demand transparency. They buy what they are told to buy, and they see only what they are told to see. Be more than a consumer. I think I've got it. Eureka, I think I've got it. Okay, all right, hear me out, hear me out. Basic air, free, but unfiltered. You want clean air. That's gonna be our Fresh Breeze plan, $29.99 a month. Now for $49.99, we can add the Oxygen Plus package. That's gonna be perfect for your seniors, your athletes, you know, anyone interesting or anyone interested in just breathing better than the peasants. I can see it now. Wait, a family plan. $89.99 for up to 4 lungs. Each additional dependent, though, you know, that's gonna cost you a little bit extra, but I think we're onto something.
Her example is really brilliant, I think.
As you emphasize your particular interest in that example.
I'm gonna need the family plan. No, just all the lungs are mine. I'm gonna need all the air.
The question is, when she's saying family plan, so much for 4 lungs, is that 4 sets of lungs? Or does each individual lung in the body count?
You only know if you read the fine print. It's the base rate for 4 individual lungs, but the second lung to each set of lungs costs an extra X99 a month. And none of that covers waste air disposal.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right.
If you can push these systems to their absolute limit and they still function, then you can be pretty sure they're going to work on the highway.
We never lose.
Part 2, a very brief history. The birth of privatization in America. When we talk about the birth of large-scale privatization in the United States, we need to look at the influencers that made it happen. And we do this by looking at the think tanks and the political architects who laid the groundwork. They built the narrative that is weaved into how we view public services and reshaped the national conversation. So key think tanks like Heritage, Cato, Reason, they're all funded by billionaire donors, and they spent decades preaching free market superiority and painting public services as inefficient. So we talked a little bit more about this in the video on Agenda 47 and Project 2025 and billionaire worship. So if you feel like you're out of the loop, go check these out. But for the most part, in the 70s, financial emergencies in major cities gave conservatives an opening to push privatization under the guise of cost cutting. And so when Reagan came along, these ideas moved from theory to practice. We're going to slash public funding, we're going to call services inefficient, and then we're going to offer private solutions. This step-by-step dismantling let voters.
I'm gonna have to back it up just a second because I just read what Chris into 386 said. I got a lot of waste air coming out my butt, mostly in the morning. Dang it, Chris.
I mean,
You know, just realized they charge for waste air.
It's a methane capture. Huh?
They charge for waste air. That explains why you have to be so rich to be a politician.
Yep.
They're all funded by billionaire donors, and they spent decades preaching free market superiority and painting public services as inefficient. So we talked a little bit more about this in the video on Agenda 47 and Project 2025 and billionaire worship. So if you feel like you're out of the loop, go check these out. But for the most part, in the 70s, financial emergencies in major cities gave conservatives an opening to push privatization under the guise of cost cutting. And so when Reagan came along, these ideas moved from theory to practice. We're going to slash public funding, we're going to call services inefficient, and then we're going to offer private solutions. This step-by-step dismantling let voters keep schools and roads, but under private contracts for profit. Conservative leaders could easily justify slashing funding for public services by feeding talking points about the government's inherent wastefulness.
The government is not efficient, and this.
I think other countries call it austerity measures. Yeah. I think, so when you hear other countries, when you hear people talking about austerity measures, remember that that's used to lead into this cycle. Now, let's let Treelon talk. This is the person I got the idea of calling them President Treelon from. This is Deja Sade is the first person I heard do that, and just had to give that to them.
A lot of waste and fraud. So we feel confident that a 15% reduction can be done without affecting any of the critical government services.
They recognize that although a lot of Americans might grumble about big government, they also really liked and relied upon services that the government provided. Things like food stamps, agriculture subsidies, schools, libraries, water treatment, roads. So rather than getting rid of these programs outright, they just slowly shifted them into private hands under the banner of market efficiency. Okay, so during the Reagan era, they basically started pitching that, hey, libraries and parks aren't true public goods because only some people use them. This reframing turned citizens into taxpayers. It turned government workers into bureaucrats. It turned services into handouts, and it just paved the way for privatization. All of this was just covered up by virtue signaling about freedom and efficiency. But in reality, it meant taking services that people had voted for and transforming them into private commodities. Needless to say, the marketing game was strong. One of the most impactful changes that came in with this marketing push was the shift in how we as Americans thought about our role in society. So instead of viewing ourselves as citizens who collectively decide how to use shared resources and to protect the common good, people were now being encouraged to see themselves as not a part of a community, but instead as individual consumers. The difference is citizens recognize that public services like libraries, parks, public transport, they benefit everyone, even if they don't use them personally. Consumers focus on direct personal benefit and cost, often missing the broader societal advantages. I hate pushing the idea that all bad roads lead to Reagan, but his administration makes it real difficult not to do that. Okay, so I'd like to preface this next part by sharing with y'all that I have hella smoke for Bill Clinton. Like, in my honest opinion, he's completely underhated as a president. And one day I will make a video explaining my Bill Clinton beef, but alas, it is not this day. Moving on, and we're gonna skip on over to the 90s. And during this time, the Democrats in Congress, they went to town blocking Reagan's privatization efforts most of the time. But these ideas were actually really easy to adapt. So Bill Clinton started rebranding himself to look like a centrist or a third wave leader, kind of like what Gavin Newsom is trying to do right now. So rather than being on the left, he decided to heavily embrace privatization, and that included rapidly growing the private prison industry. This is where we start to see neoliberalism. So let me know if you guys want to ever break down the political spectrum, because I know a lot of times we throw out these words, neoliberalism, neoconservative. You're like, what the hell does that even mean? It sounds bad, but if you want to get down with it, you can get down with it. This is where we start to see the rise of neoliberalism, the new Democrats. So moving a little bit further away from the left and honestly more to the center and,
At Firestone Complete Auto Care, we believe that if you can't back the work, you shouldn't be doing it. That's why our
dipping into the right. Ooh, if y'all want to, we can also dive deep into why this started.
What?
In response to that commercial, no, we're the United States. They should stay on the right. Not on the center, not on the left. Firestone should stay on the right.
This is true. Firestone should stay on the right side of the road. And on the right side of the car. Preferably not on the roof. Sorry.
No, don't be. I'm sorry that I missed that transition. That's what I'm ashamed that I didn't catch that.
Oh.
That's what that look was. That was not me being irritated with you guys. That was me being ashamed of myself for having missed something so obvious. I have to applaud you for that one, sir. Thank you for doing your job. Peanut Gallery, well played, well done.
Strategy is happening. You know, why aren't candidates who are running on liberal or left ideals not?
What was that?
Nothing.
I mumble a lot and face away from my friends. And a lot of times they say, "Hey Mitch, what did you say?" And then I mumble again and they say, "Hey Mitchell, what did you say?" And I end up shouting, "That mountain is really far away."
Moving further left and why they are moving right and or to the center. So y'all let me know. Anyways, he wanted to rebrand as a third way New Democrat. And pushing this agenda allowed him to please conservatives by shrinking the government on paper while funneling public money to corporations. In fact, Bill Clinton did such a good job at this that Reagan's privatization chief called Clinton's proposals the boldest privatization agenda put forth by any American president. Until now, of course.
Well, I want a dynamic country where the private enterprise carries the day, not the government.
Part 3, the consumer mindset emerges. Turning citizens into customers. Okay, so Make America Great Again sells us a fantasy, and it's one where life was easier simply because, because boomers had it easier and because life was less expensive. And yes, prices were lower, but that's only one part of the picture. And what really made life more accessible for past generations wasn't just affordability, it was policy. The post-war era was built on high marginal tax rates for the wealthy, strong labor protections, and a well-built-out public sector that was specifically designed to serve the common good. Huge projects that were spanning years solely for the purpose of serving the common good. But I will let you do the math on what happened in the 1960s that triggered a push to strip away public goods and replace them with private alternatives. I'm talking private libraries, private pools, private water fountains. You see where I'm going with this? This wasn't just about money. It was an ideological shift that shared resources could and should be turned into exclusive commodities. People were being coached into seeing themselves as consumers who have personal entitlements rather than citizens with collective responsibilities. So in this new mindset, if you're excluded, it's your fault. It's because you're not working hard enough to afford what used to be public and free. If public goods vanish, it's because you failed to pay for the private version. And probably the most dangerous, cooperation isn't valued because as a consumer, you're told that the customer is always right and you owe nothing to anyone else. And it captures this push towards rugged individualism and the myth that everyone should be entirely self-sufficient while ignoring the large-scale solutions that most of the time they require community effort. That's the reality of the situation.
Yes, that is that is how that saying really goes. But that is not what we're being sold as consumers. As consumers, we're being sold we need everything and we need to be right. We need to own it to be right. Tactical cheese cutter?
You've heard us talk about that before.
Did you send a picture of the tactical cheese cutter?
I thought those things were I thought those things were hand protected box cutters.
Nope, that is my tactical cheese cutter. It stays on my desk and I use it to cut blocks of cheese.
Yeah, I have more, please.
Dude,
I put a
if you
different
have
picture
to
in
cut
chat.
that much cheese, maybe you should try Beano or Lactaid. You might consider it's a gut issue if you're cutting that much cheese.
In his case, it's a brain issue.
See, I'm really storing it so I can start my own space program.
Oh, yes.
It wasn't a euphemism.
Mm.
Never mind.
Look in the
Gosh
Discord
darn it,
chat.
I completely lost where I was.
That was sent over half an hour ago, so it's your own damn fault for railing yourself.
You know, Danger. What is that now?
Not that one. The sign. The road sign.
No.
You said the magic word logistics, and it reminded me that I had to share that.
Why? We were at getting from
services and being sold the bill of how the customer is always right, so therefore we must be in competition with each other to be the most right.
Going from no, I don't think it was that. I think it was going from citizen to consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the competition thing. Although maybe it is. Maybe I'm missing a bit there. I think we're going to go back a couple of moments.
Could and should be turned into exclusive commodities. People were being coached into seeing themselves as consumers who have personal entitlements rather than citizens with collective responsibilities. So in this new mindset, if you're excluded, it's your fault. It's because you're not working hard enough to afford what used to be public and free. If public goods vanish, it's because you failed to pay for the private version. And probably the most dangerous, cooperation isn't valued because as a consumer, you're told that the customer is always right and you owe nothing to anyone else. And it captures this push towards rugged individualism and the myth that everyone should be entirely self-sufficient while ignoring the large-scale solutions that most of the time they require community effort. That's the reality of the situation. Ideally, everyone would be self-sufficient and be an individual, but it's just not realistic in a society. And what makes matters worse is as the lines start to blur between private and public, politicians are now able to dodge blame by saying, well, it's not our job to provide these services. They shift the costs and the risk to individuals, leaving people to pay for things that were once considered basic rights or once considered shared resources.
The idea is to instill in people the idea that all you care about is yourself.
This undermines the idea that working together benefits us all, and it leaves a lot of people without unnecessary services unless you can foot the bill.
The WPA created more than 8 million jobs from 1935 to 1943 for a great many unskilled workers and professionals. The WPA constructed 850 airports, built or repaired 650,000 miles of America's roads, sold more than 300 million articles of clothing for the needy, and erected 110,000 libraries, schools, and hospitals.
All right, team, our focus this quarter is turning citizens into consumers because let's be real, voting is outdated. So what if democracy was a subscription service? Yes, exactly. Introducing Government Plus. This is going to be the nation's first tiered access citizenship model. The basic plan lets you vote in local elections, but only for pre-approved candidates. The Platinum plan gets you access to state elections and priority DMV service. But for the most dedicated Americans, we have the Gold Patriot package. That's going to include federal voting rights, TSA PreCheck, and one free Supreme Court appeal. With this, we have the immigration problem solved because this golden visa will provide a pathway to citizenship and residency to those potential citizens most able to afford the toll. Those most deserving, excuse me. For $5 million, you can get unrestricted access, voting, lobbying capabilities, asset protection, political leverage, and legal immunity. Yes, you in the back. Isn't that just buying democracy? Aren't we monetizing citizenship? Exactly. The market decides who should have rights, not some outdated constitution. Now, who wants to run the A/B tests on paywalled healthcare? Freedom, now with in-app purchases. Now when someone says, why is everything so expensive? Know that it's because America is being run like a business, and it has been run since, virtually its inception. It's just now affecting a wider group of Americans in really undeniable ways now. What we have right now is the result of America being run like a business. And we also just elected the richest man in the world and the literal wet dream of the slimiest corporations. And this has given birth to the most pro-business and pro-private administration that we've ever had. That's where we are.
Take over, Elijah.
That's a beautiful description.
Part 4, public goods for sale.
All right. We've been going for a couple of hours now.
Let me guess. We've made it 12 minutes into the video.
16 and a half.
That's not much better.
No.
No, but it is actually more than 12.
Do we want to keep going and try and make it to... The next chapter break isn't for a while.
Yeah.
So I think it's either we push through most of it now, or we push through, we stop here about a third of the way through, do another third next time, and the final third.
I say we stop here and we try to remember to actually eat something before the next one so that the raging ferrets can try to stay on track.
So we're not, so y'all aren't all as cuckoo.
Yes.
And hopefully the internet will be a lot more cooperative next time.
Hopefully. We can always hope. Hello, pequeñito. Hola. Hola, mi pequeñito.
There's the problem. The cats are escaping the tubes. We need to put them back in so the internet works.
Yes. Hola, mi pequeñito. Hi. Well, friends, thank you for joining us. I do feel like we have learned something about how this is working, how the history of how this happened, how privatization. I don't feel like we should have to explain how it's bad, but I feel like we are going to explain in the video how it's bad, why it's bad, why it is reducing the quality of goods and services for Americans, while also costing them more. Have we gotten through all of the shout-outs, by the way?
I hit cat twice, so...
All right. So...
It looks like you got everybody.
I know that this is some pretty heavy subject matter, and it's, I watched this video all the way through once, so we're going back over it. This is a second time through for me. It does, I think it does help to watch it a second time. It's definitely a watch twice kind of video. Luckily, Deja Sade is a very entertaining presenter, very fun. I really like the character work that she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, I'm sort of kind of trying to give Peanut Gallery time to finish.
Oh no, this is going to take a while.
Okay. Is it
It's going to take a
important?
while to unpack after you read it.
Oh, goodness gracious. Is it important to be talking about on stream?
We might want to, but we'll find out.
Because if it is, I'm tempted to say, just say it.
Yeah.
And let's do it right now. Let's
Typing
do
it
it.
out is helping me organize my thoughts and say it in a much more understandable fashion.
So you're gonna type it out and save it for next week, and we'll start with you next week.
Oh, please no. Well, I don't mind shouting in from the sidelines. I don't like being in the spotlight.
I know you don't. I know you don't, but you have some important opinions. And
I do have some opinions.
And you do have information that others here don't. You have a perspective that others here don't. Which makes it equally as important to the conversation. I do joke about, I brought you in to keep things light and funny, but no, I really brought you in because I think that you are insightful and capable of holding a good conversation. I think that you have valid insights into most of the things we talk about. And so
You and I can chat about the WPA for a moment and see if he finishes typing.
All right, go off on the WPA. Let her cook. Let her cook.
It's not a bad thing. It's
No.
that there were a lot of things that came out of that people don't realize happened.
Here's the paragraph. As you were saying.
Yes.
You go ahead and do the WPA, and I'll read this.
One of the things that happened with that was they had a whole bunch of people that really didn't have any major specialty. They were writers, they were reporters, they were things that did that. And they did a whole lot of interviews with the older people in communities, and they just kind of went door to door taking down notes and interviews and collecting stories that had been passed down in the community or in various families that were then cataloged, and you can go research, things about, this community, that community, and find what the old people that were living there at the time had to say about the old people that had lived there previously. And they ended up saving a whole bunch of oral history that we wouldn't have gotten any other way. And they didn't just do current gossip. They got the little known historical things. They got the little known historical things, the fun tidbits about the area. They got the various family anthologies. Okay. And for me personally, the thing that they got were all of the folklore. They really got a whole bunch of the folklore, and they got a whole bunch of the ghost stories for each area.
Yeah, you, the ghost stories, I bet. You and me both, because, I do love me a good ghost story. But no, I had heard about that. The sort of the attempt to, the WPA with the attempt to sort of send out people to keep records.
And they did it. Was it the greatest thing ever? No. There were a whole lot of ways they could have done it better or more efficiently or whatever, and gotten a larger collection of things.
I'm sure.
But they did it.
You know?
They did do it, and we have what we have because they did it.
Right. Exactly.
I think I gave you a book that relies heavily
I think you
on
did.
information. Yeah.
I think you did. So onto this comment by the Peanut Gallery here that I do think holds some weight. That holds at least some weight. You know, why is it as soon as I go to read something, a whole bunch of notifications decide to pop up?
Because they can.
So they always talk about
you
how
haven't touched your phone in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So they always talk about how Brock, where were you? I thought we had this bit set up.
You can't ask a question and then immediately start talking. It's unfair. You got to give people time to answer.
What was the question? So they always talk about how the boomers and earlier generations had it easier and cheaper. This is not true for one very important reason. Abundance. This is true. I'm sorry. And I read it as is true the first time I read it. I don't know why I added that in. This is true for one very important reason: abundancy and allocation of resources. That drastically changed with the boomers, silent and Xers. Just remember what boomer stands for: the baby boom, where the population growth exploded. So with the expansion of that population, that also meant that resources were spread thinner to cover for everybody. With that in mind, I am constantly irritated the heck out of... I'm sorry, I do have to paraphrase that part.
Understood.
When I hear people bemoaning the dropping birth rates. So the cost of everything has gone up, as well as the difficulty for obtaining said good and resources. That's where I'm stopping this, as my train of thought is attempting to derail. The part that makes this so much worse is that those of the earlier generations are constantly fighting to claw back what they believe is rightfully owed them, making it harder for others to get minimal resources that are needed to survive. I agree with that. And yes, and I feel like we were told.
You cut out at yes and.
Right on. Because I really didn't say anything after that. Yes, and. I think we were told that the distribution of resources was being spread thinner because there were more people. Whereas what actually happened at that time was the resources were all flowing upstream to the top. And we were told that by flowing upstream to the top, it was going to spread back out across all of it, but it didn't. We were told to expect austerity measures because of the more people spreading resources thinner, but instead we all got austerity measures, meaning that the wealth and resources could stay in the hands of a very few people.
So the way I look at it is there was the population boom. Resources were, to an extent, were spread thinner. Now, everything up till that point, and disastrously after that point, was based on a projection of growth and more. That projection did not include that large explosion in growth. So while trying to force continued growth and more, they are effectively making it harder for people to get the minimum now.
Yep.
Just like most corporations have a continual annual continual annual report of 8 to 10% growth, which is completely unsustainable because it's got to stop somewhere. There's only a certain amount of resources. Yes,
Because
you can make the numbers bigger, but those bigger numbers mean less.
Right. We have started to, not just started, we have hit the limits of what growth is possible as far as what economic growth is possible in the private sector. This is why I think that we have to find our way free of this system, because it's not sustainable and we are at the limits of the capitalist system, this extractive capitalist system. So if we don't find our way free of it, we will eventually extract everything and concentrate all the wealth in only a few hands. And it will be well, it will be what it will be, but it won't be good. So, to leave it on a slightly less down note, let's
Which, if you put it back to 19...
Huh? I think their internet is cutting out again. So, there are things that we can do right now, things we can be aware of to start overcoming this. And that is finding a way to grow and share food, finding ways to share resources, sharing books, those book share programs, ride share programs, any sort of communal activity is a good way to to start undermining this. So, just to give us a little bit of hope to sort of exit out on.
Awesome.
All right. So, thank you, Kat. Thank you, Peanut Gallery. Thank you, Brock. Thank you, Just Me Crystal. Thank you, Chris into 386. Thank you, Midnight Daydream. Yes, Midnight Daydream. Thank you, Kingsways or Kush Gang. And thank you, Dassin. Thank you, everybody. Much love. Oh, to answer your question, no, I haven't talked to her about making a D&D character. So.
Okay, well, it's just an NPC.
Just an NPC. No feet pics required.
I mean, if she wants pictures of my feet, I guess.
For free in this
I think she'd
economy?
probably be more interested in kitty cat toes from Pecanito.
I have some puppy dog toe beans.
Those would probably work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. Much love to everybody. Stick around for the raid. Now is the time on the show when I say, as they say around here, 2 up, 2 down, VA, double deuces. We're out, y'all.
Tell your children not to do what I done and spend their lives in sin and misery in the house. I've got one foot on the platform, baby, and the other's on the train. And I'm going back down to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. There is a house in New Orleans they call a rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, dear God, I know I'm one.